Hey, worm people, Captain Matt and Jude here, and we today are in Lumberton, North Carolina with one of our good friends, Brandis, who is going bananas raising worms. I mean, this guy is just taking off. And not only that, he is sharing and teaching and just getting people all around the place to start using worm castings for their gardens and getting great reports back from the people that he's selling them to. So let's see, I think he's in the worm barn. Let's go take a look. Hey, anybody home?
Oh,
hey, Brandis.
Man, how you doing?
Good, man. Good to see you.
All right.
And Jude.
Jude, come on, give me a hug, man. All right. How you guys doing? Y'all come on in.
Yeah.
Let's meet the worms.
Woo.
I was just giving them a little spray with my molasses.
Wow, look at all this.
Yeah, I want to take you guys to the breeding section for my European nightcrawlers.
Wow, look at these.
So here is the European nightcrawler, and we do 2.5 gallons of compost mixed in with the feed. We do.
You mix the feed in with the.
Mix it together.
Yep. For Euros, you can do that.
Yeah, because they burrow.
Right.
So they get it all. And then we'll do around 250 to 300 worms per bucket, and we'll let that sit for 21 days, and then we'll separate the cocoons and the castings, of course, and then we'll reset the buckets with the same worms.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow. Just going to keep doubling and multiplying.
Yeah.
You're going to have to build an addition on this thing.
Oh, I'm definitely already mapping out the property to see where I can put bins.
You separate the worms first, then you go to 1/8 inch.
1/8 inch for the cocoons.
And you separate the cocoons, and the cocoons end up in here, and the castings end up
in a bag in somebody's garden.
Right, right. Let's look in here, because I'm just guessing that thing has so many babies in it, it's just a knockout.
So, and what we did was we started with about 6 inches of bedding, but everything else that you see in here has been, let's get it back here, has been pure cocoons. And these guys, you got a lot of babies.
And they grow so fast, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're definitely burrowed down up under this. And see, what you have a lot of is cocoons. I don't know if you can pick that up in there, but there are a lot of cocoons in here.
Ooh,
hatching out.
That's what you like. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Awesome. So now, when you get this and you bring it to the top, then you'll take this and sift it out again and start all over. Is that how you'll work this?
My plan for this bin, and I want to work mostly with the European nightcrawler because I think they do better in the raised garden bed setting, which is what I see a lot of people around here dealing with.
Okay.
And in fields as well. But what I want to do is start offering these for sale. So once it does get full, I might sift, or I might just keep them. I hadn't decided yet.
Okay.
So this is not really forecasting. This is more or less get my populations up where I can start.
And that's continuous flow too,
yeah,
right?
Continuous
flow.
flow.
So you can scrape the bottom.
Scrape the bottom.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Great. Awesome.
So
awesome.
That's my European nightcrawler setup. Right here we have the Indian blues and some red wigglers, but I think most are Indian blues. And this is a wedge system that I've been running.
Woo! Look at those babies. Look at them on the plastic.
Oh yeah.
You probably have lots of babies on the plastic. Look at the little ones on the plastic.
Yeah, it's a
little tiny
whole
things.
ecosystem in here.
Yeah.
And I think I got him at a steep incline right now because they kind of migrate. But they come up and eat now.
Yeah.
I put the food at the top and they'll come up and eat, but they like to stay at the bottom. I think once I start getting it filled out this way, they'll
oh my goodness, look at the concentration of worms there.
Yeah.
And that's you can't not, even though you're not breeding, the babies are, cocoons are being dropped and babies are coming up. But what a healthy crop there of worms. Or a healthy herd of worms, I should say. Wow, and just feel that. I mean, it's like
crop.
There is no compost left here. This is just pure castings. The worms got in there, and they ingest it, and they'll ingest it. They'll eat it once and turn around, eat it again, and eat it again, and till it just gets purer and purer and purer. Man, that's beautiful, Brandis.
So, yeah, and I'll come out here, and I'll every 2 days I'm feeding. I could feed more, to be honest with you, but I like to keep it at 2 days so I'm not running into major issues.
Yeah, let them eat everything. They're going to do fine. Hey, I enjoy meals much more when I'm hungry.
Oh, absolutely.
You
And what I do here, we leave that open
Okay,
for now,
all right.
is I'll come in, and this is my molasses water.
Yep.
And this is just something I like to do to get it, you know,
Sweeten-
get those
sweeten
microbes
them up a
going.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
feedstock, I use my, these are ground up corn.
Do you grind it yourself or get it ground?
Yep, I have a cornmeal grinder. I
Okay.
actually got a recommendation from somebody from the worm people community.
Yep.
One off Amazon. It's about, it's behind you, but
Okay.
yeah, it's pretty big. It was about 5 gallons, and I'll grind it up in one time. And I have rotted fruit that I like to sit. There's some in buckets behind you. I feed mostly in the winters the ground up feedstock, but as the season progresses, I'll start incorporating rotted fruits and vegetables
Nice,
as well.
nice, yeah.
We'll cover them up
Yep.
now. And they go down quick.
Ooh, yeah, they do. They don't like that light.
Yeah.
It's not me, or was it me? They saw me and they ran.
But no, I talked to them before you came. I told them, I said, y'all better behave now. Captain Matt's coming to see you.
All right, all
Yeah.
right. Well, they didn't listen, I'll tell you that.
Do they ever? Yeah, my grinder's right here. If you want, I'll take it out
Yeah.
and set it. There is a farmer, local. He actually, I've talked to him about his growing practices. A lot of farmers aren't really comfortable with discussing those things. But he's real open, and something that I really likes his practices. And so I get it from him, because a lot of folks put things in their products when they're growing it that I don't really approve of, especially giving the worms. But yeah, this is where I grind it up. I'll
Nice.
feed the hopper and get it ground up, and then I just keep my bucket stocked up. And again, I
Brandis,
don't have.
what does something like that cost?
I think I paid around $190.
That's a good price. Yeah, and that's a purely grain grinder, right?
Yep, purely grain.
Yep. Oh,
Yes,
that's
sir.
wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is flour.
Flour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
this is my
cornmeal. You can make some good
cornmeal
cornbread with that.
And then this is my oats. This is oats I
Woo.
use.
What do
So
you
I
do with
have
it?
about 3 nurseries that I'm working with now. I have a convenience store, a hardware store, and then, of course, the locals that deal with me directly. The customer base is picking up. Word of mouth travels, so you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Especially when people are starting to share the photos before and after of using the castings, so that really helps out.
Yep, yep, for sure.
So what we have here is our 1 gallon option. We do use the boxes, but for everyone that we've been dealing with so far, I guess because of their shelving, they like this, and they like the fact that the customers can see
The
what
window.
it is.
Yeah.
Especially when you look and see that one of the cocoons have hatched and they got a baby.
You got a little.
Yeah, and they're like, what is that? Yeah, but yeah, this is our 1 gallon bag. It's been very popular. We do have the quart size option. And then we have, of course, this is what I use for the 5 gallon.
Right,
And
and
this is
that's where we're using the 5 gallon
Bucket, yes, sir.
bucket until I find out where to find those bags, because that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Great
this
idea.
is a sandbag.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got good airflow, so it keeps your microorganisms
Oh, that's
thriving.
awesome.
Right. Yep. But we get orders, and the season's picking up now.
You
Worms
know-
is kind of what brought us together,
Yeah.
because I've been going around in the neighborhood passing out samples. You know, I ride by, I see gardens, raised beds, and they look in bad
Great
shape.
idea.
And I'm like, hey,
Great
I got
idea.
something that'll fix that, and I give them the samples, and it's not even a week later they're texting or calling, what is this stuff? What is it? You know, and then that's when I refer them to places to research. But anyway, they definitely come back, and like you said, that door wouldn't have opened for us had I not been, you know, hey, put this in your garden.
Really?
Yeah, man. They love the fact that you give them a
people
sample.
in our community that I know today as friends, I wouldn't even have known them, you know.
Right.
But the word gets around. Word gets around. Then you go to the local markets, and we go to a farmer's market. It's just unending, and it's going to only get better and better and better. Yeah.
So definitely bringing people together.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's go take a look at the vegetable garden. It's early spring here, but there's some exciting things going on in Brandis's garden.
All right, let's take a look.
Ooh.
That this breaks my heart. But I ran an experiment. You know, you can see this was a little malnourished. I did a 80% topsoil in this bed and 20% compost. I did the same thing in this bed. The only difference between the two is I used not even a handful of castings under each onion set here, and I used no castings in the other bed. And you can tell it's a major
Same
difference.
onion, same soil,
Same layout.
same layout, and worm castings. What a difference!
What a difference, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
And this is we're in our 3rd week now from me planting these.
Whew.
And I'll be feeding this bed, so it won't go like this much longer.
Right. Yeah, no, get some worm castings in
Yeah, I'm
there.
definitely going to be feeding it today, actually.
Yeah,
But yeah,
fantastic.
it's a major difference when you're using worm castings.
Well, Brandis, that is awesome. And why don't we just sit down and have a chat? I know Jude
Okay.
is dying to ask you some questions.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people out there, they're looking at you. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, from being on the Worm People Forum. Everybody can raise worms. You can raise worms
Yep.
in an apartment in the
Yes.
city. You can raise them for a garden this size. You got all the fertilizer you want for the rest of your life. Not only that, your neighbors are getting the fertilizer. We're educating people about the fact that chemical fertilizers are destroying us. All right, so I'll stop rambling. And I think Jude's gonna ask you, has some really serious questions to ask you.
Okay,
All right.
Jude.
So first question is, how'd you exactly like get started into farming worms?
Okay. Well, it was a long, drawn-out journey, but in 2019, I had reached a point in that journey where I was focused on health, and I started doing more research into living soils because I was trying to grow my own food and medicine, and I started noticing that I wasn't having any success, and I was putting a lot of time and energy, a lot of money, and it seems like for every issue that was caused with the synthetic fertilizer, they offered a solution, but I had to pay money to get it. So I started doing the research in the living soil, of course, and come across the worm castings. I started a 18-gallon tote with about 1,000 worms, and then you popped up in my algorithm on YouTube in around 2020, I think it was 2021. But yeah, when I saw Captain Matt's CFT bin, that kind of opened up the idea to having castings continuously throughout the season for my larger garden, and then that's when it took off.
Yeah. Awesome.
I know you've probably encountered some challenges along the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's like one interesting challenge that you've had and how'd you overcome?
The most, I say, interesting challenge that I've had with the worm farm would be growing in our climate. Oh, not growing, but breeding and just having the worms in our climate. You have, I guess you have best of both worlds. In the summer it's hot, in the winter it can be very cold, and you don't really know what to expect. The way I overcame it was, of course, a lot of research went into it, but the biggest resource that I had was being able to connect with people through the Worm People community. The last 2 mentor sessions that we had were really beneficial to that, because the folks that I talked to were up north in the colder climates, and they really shed some light on some of the things that I could be doing with my farm. So that was one of the ways that I overcame it, was reaching out to other worm farmers.
How do you stay motivated? Like, because I know this takes like a lot of work and stuff. So
To answer that question, I have a parable, and it's called the parable of the wise worm farmer. There once was a wise worm farmer, and this farmer had many bins. The farm that this worm farmer had was, our little brains couldn't begin to imagine the many types of species and worm bins that this worm farmer had. But this worm farmer wasn't an ordinary worm farmer. This was a special worm farmer, and the worms that were on the farm were more special. So one day, this worm farmer went to see about a particular bin, and before the farmer could even get to the bin, the farmer could smell that something wasn't right, And upon examining the bin, the farmer could see that some of the worms had decayed into the dead worm and returned back to the soil, if you will. Some worms were in the early stages of protein poisoning, and then we had some worms that, due to the lack of moisture in the bin, had curled up into tiny balls and gone into survival mode. They cut themselves off from the rest of the worms. Well, being a wise worm farmer, the farmer knew that the next step was to harvest the bin. In the sifting process, a lot of the older worms will be separated. They're mature, they'll go on to wherever they go. But the juveniles and the cocoons fall through, and they're collected and placed in a new bin to continue the task that they've been given to do on the farm. And my motivation comes from the juveniles, the cocoons, and the new bin. That's what motivates me.
Awesome.
So this takes up a lot of time, obviously.
Absolutely.
So how do you balance like worm farming with like your family and work?
I love doing both. So when I clock out from work, and I buy a lot of time back from work, they have a program where you can pay for your own vacation. So I buy a lot of my time back, and I like to use my time productively. So when I clock out from that job, I come home and start the worm business. A lot of times I'm up to about 2 o'clock in the morning organizing and sifting and getting things right. But the whole time my kids are at my knees and my wife is by my side. So that's kind of how that's about.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Doesn't get too much sweeter than that.
I love it.
Yeah. Brandis, when you got your first worms, what's your story about how they affected you? You know, you got your worms. Like I got my worms, and I was like, I only did it because someone said I really should.
Right.
And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try, you know. But man, once I started getting my hands in there and they started breeding and there were cocoons and there were babies, something happened in me. I mean, like, you know, an epiphany of a worm epiphany, you know.
Yeah.
And what was how did worming grab you? Because you've been grabbed by this.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
you're
immersed.
You're immersed. You're
Yeah.
caught, man. You're on the hook.
Yeah. The worms, really what they did for me was open the door of more research, if you will.
Yeah.
And when I got my bin, man, it's a relationship that's kind of hard to explain. But just looking at what they were doing in the bin, how they were taking things that we toss in the trash every day that go to a place that cause more problems, and just looking at how they were breaking that down and turning it into something that I knew I needed.
Yeah.
Really motivated me, and it really changed. And since I have gotten worms and I've done more research into living soil and how that affects plants and how that affects our bodies, my holistic journey has even gotten more serious as far as no artificial sweeteners, no certain items in the house. So it's like I said, it's the relationship there that's kind of hard to explain. But to answer the question about the changing in how I changed when I got worms, there's been a lot of change since.
Do you think
worms
it's
have
mystical?
I would say so.
Yeah, I
know
mean that.
We're
Yeah.
all energetic beings.
Yep.
I do believe we're all sparks, if you will, vibing in this place. And I think worms have a message. I think they have a message. I know we're all watching the skies, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. But there's a lot left to do here.
Yep.
And I feel like we need to get more serious about what we're doing to the earth and the place we live in. And I think worms are coming out of the ground. It's sad that something that happens in the ground naturally has to come out and get in a bin to continue their job, you know. But that's where we're at. I'm just glad to be a part of the whole journey.
I see it, man. I see it coming in such a massive way. And I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, and I can't point and say that's the reason. But boy, even the doctors and researchers are starting to say, I'm afraid it's the chemicals we've been using since 1948.
People are starting to open their eyes to what's really going on as far as, and for me personally, in my experience, it all ties back into greed. There was a time when farmers were farming. That's just what we did.
Right.
We lived. It was part of life, and we farmed to provide. Now we've moved to farm to survive, and now that's not working.
Putting profit above people.
Money.
You know? Yeah, it's all the dollar. The money is not the root of all evil, but the love of money is. And we have lost the love of the land, the love of our families, and the love of having our own garden. We're in a bubble right now that's going to pop.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're on the right side of the pop, because we're going to land
agree.
right in a worm bin.
Oh yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you wish you knew when you were just starting out?
One thing I wish I would have known was how much hard work it is. When you see somebody doing something they genuinely love, and they know there's a deeper purpose behind what they're doing, they make it look so easy.
Yeah.
And you get these worm farmers that's doing just that, and you know the conversations, they're in a chipper mood, and they're just walking around, and they're just happy, and you're like, man, this seems like it would be easy, you know, a quick dollar here, but I'm telling you, pay attention to the clothes, look at the shoes, you know, look at the hands. There's a lot of work that goes into running a worm farm. But like I say, when you're doing something you love and there's a genuine desire to do, there's a underlying agenda behind what you're doing, and it's really to help people, I think you'll see that person happy and thriving, and you don't really see all
Yeah.
the hard work that comes
Right.
behind it.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I wish I would have known. Does that deter me? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the challenge. So.
Yeah, yeah. And the reality is we don't know in the beginning when we start out, which is the best thing, because you gotta get your hands in it.
Exactly.
And as you're learning, you start to say, boy, I wish I knew that back then.
Yeah.
Or I wish I knew how hard it was or how much work I'm gonna put in.
Yeah.
But the other side of the coin is, man, we're so excited and have so much joy and happiness out of raising gardens that are really, being fertilized properly now and seeing worms grow. And one of the most important things that have happened in my adult life was getting to this place where we're looking and seeing the problem on the planet and seeing, although we're small right now, but we're growing fast.
Mm-hmm.
But to see the fact that there's an answer for the problem out there,
There is.
and it's not a matter of, well, they're just going to keep going the way they're going because they're making so much money. No, they can't keep going the way they're
Right.
going.
Yeah.
They're crumbling. They're falling apart.
What's your plan for like the future of your business?
Where I see us heading in the future is, well, of course, we want to expand. I'm brainstorming now with the property to see how I can lay out more beds and start offering different species of worms. But our core, the thing that I want to do is most important to us is, yes, we're a company. We sell things, but it's the message that my worms have as far as our generation. And I say our generation because, we got the older generation, younger generation. I'm 33, and my generation is where I think a lot of the technology spun off. We see a lot of people bowing their heads these days, but they're not praying, they're looking at devices. And I think it's important that our company have the knowledge and be an example for others in our generation to get back to a self-sufficient lifestyle as far as growing your own food, medicine. It's doable. We can do it. Our ancestors did it before us. And I think worms play a vital role in that because of the self-sufficiency that is behind worms. Once you get a worm bin started and you can grow worms, you can farm worms anywhere. So where I see us going is getting in the community, reaching out to some of these people that already have platforms established, and sharing our knowledge with them and how to set up bins and get that going, because there's not a lot of knowledge out there as far as worming goes. I talk to a lot of master gardeners who have been gardening their whole lives. Yeah. And I talk about worms and what they do for the garden, and I talk about how the stuff that they're using is killing the microorganisms in the soil. And first thing they ask me is, what university did you graduate from? And I'm like, Worm People Community, man.
Wormpeople.com.
Yeah, but yeah, it's once you start disseminating that knowledge to folks who are already gardening and already, because there's a big movement that I've witnessed of people really paying attention to what's going on in the world and the economy, and they're seeing that the only way really forward is to go back to a lot of the old ways and cultivating our own food and communities coming together, and that's where I see us in the future, is this sharing the knowledge, getting a lot of community gardens started. A community garden to me is not something that you drive to and where you have pretty flowers and all these fancy beds. A community garden to me could be you and your neighbor agreeing on a plot. Yeah. So that's where we want to start at, and that's the vision for our company. Our website is organiclifeamendments.com, and then we'd also have a Facebook page under the same name, Organic Life Amendments.
But Darwin studied worms for 5 years. It was his major effort.
I didn't know that.
He was onto something, and then he died.
Many people who get onto something die miraculously, but
but here's what he said. Here's what he said from his study. He said this. He said he believed that the worm is the most important creature on the face of the earth. Look at all our topsoils. Worms didn't do it by themselves, but they were the major player for all the topsoil on the entire planet. They're bringing it up from down below and spreading it around. And gardening was, years gone by. We weren't dealing with dead soils. We had live soils, and it was the worm. The worm. Well, Brandis, we are really excited for what you're doing. I love reading your stuff in the forum. Our hope and wish is that you just keep going. Turn it into something that can really make a
benefit
major
millions.
difference.
Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of the community. I'm glad that we crossed paths.
Hey, Worm people, we are in Lumberton, North Carolina with Brandis, and so we are now heading off to visit another worm farm. But boy, Brandis, you made our day.
All
Had a
right.
great
Y'all made my
time
day,
being
too.
here, man.
We're going to be talking
It's
about this all day.
Really exciting. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, great meeting your wife
Yeah,
and
man.
your 4 boys, but it's been great. God bless you.
Subscribe now and then head over to wormpeople.com to jumpstart your worm farming journey.